4.5 seconds away from pole.
I was never very good at mathematics. When I said 18 seconds a lap slower, 8 seconds would be more like it.
I don't even think it's 8, is it, Des? I know it's 13 kilometres, I know that, but they have slowed it down. And I think it'll make for tighter racing.
All right, let's have a look at the points of interest. Once again, 3 Aussies are in action over this weekend. Yesterday, Rob Newen took his first points finish for the year in the Formula 3000 race at the Nürburgring. Starting from 4th on the grid, he got as high as 3rd before finishing in 5th place. As a result, that will no doubt make even more people sit up and take notice. This kid's going so good, isn't he?
Well, he would have actually finished in 3rd, but apparently he had it coming together towards the closing stages of the race, and that whacked him back down to 5th. But he was testing in Monza last week, and he was almost a second quicker than anybody there, so he's braining them.
Well, but Ryan Briscoe, he's not having such good news. He was classified 17th after completing only 7 laps. Racing tonight in Formula 3 is James Courtney, who has surprised no one with another 2 pole positions at Castle Combe. Now, Minardi's ongoing financial problems may be over tomorrow. God help us, I hope so. This has been going on for weeks. The Formula 3000 team was sold to rivals Coloni during the week, easing things a little bit, financially anyway, and after a decision by Max Mosley, Minardi should receive the outstanding TV money on Monday. Any team owners who disagree will have to take their case to arbitration.
Well, look, it's very simple. I mean, if you're running 4th in a race and the guy that beat you into 3rd position is disqualified for a technicality or whatever, you take over 3rd place. Minardi finished last year behind Prost, who are no longer there, so they should now take Prost's position. Now, if Prost was still there, the other guys wouldn't have got the money anyway. So Minardi deserves the money.
Oh, it's gone on and on. It's ridiculous. Now, still on Minardi, Mark Webber is testing for Jaguar this Friday at Barcelona, but he's denied he's looking for another drive. According to Paul Stoddard, the test is part of a plan to get Cosworth engines for the team for next season.
Well, that's a bit of politicking going on there, which I think is quite clever. If Mark goes over and drives the Jaguar and goes very, very quickly indeed, Cosworth might say, well, gee, this guy's really going good in the car. Maybe we should look at giving Cosworth engines to the Minardi team next year. But I think there's more to it than meets the eye. We'll stay tuned for that one.
All righty, so you're all set now for a good race in that first couple of corners. That's going to be the interesting one because the way the grid's lined up, it'll be all go.
Well, I think the first right-hander in particular is one that doubles back on you, and these cars do inherently suffer from a bit of understeer, particularly with cold tyres. So, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I think we'll see some drama on these first 2 corners.
All right, let's take you over now live to James Allen and Martin Brundle.
And we have seen that with brand new Michelins, you get a better start from the Michelin runners this year. So will Ralph have an advantage down to that first corner? We'll have to wait and see. But quite clearly, we've seen this last few Grand Prix, James, they're getting their launch controls pretty well sorted. The grid tends to leave in unison at the moment.
That is the Vidal chicane, the very slow left-right flick-flack. Taking it around about 60 miles an hour at racing speeds. They have a huge breakdown into it from 180 miles an hour down the long back straight, which is the fastest part of this racetrack. Tremendous anticipation then and expectation as the leaders come onto the grid. All the crowd in front of us and up in the stands around us are on their feet. This is without doubt one of the magic moments of Grand Prix racing. A fantastic calm before the storm.
You're not allowed to do a practice start as such from a stationary position, but what you can do is slow the car down, pull a short gear, first or second, and just absolutely black the throttle pedal. And you saw them smoking their rear tyres, trying to get some heat before they park it on the line. The front runners will be sitting there at least half a minute. The engine temperature's boiling up and the tyres and brakes cooling down, unfortunately.
Well, we saw a formation start in Canada between the 2 Ferraris. Are there strategies at play between the 2 BMW Williams? What will happen on this run down to this incredibly tight first corner? Turn up the sound and enjoy, because we are racing at Nürburgring and the 2 Williams are away well. Nothing special by Schumacher yet. One of the Renaults on the inside going very strongly, and they're 2 abreast down the run, and look at this. As the 2 Ferraris dive inside each other, one of the Renaults goes up the inside, 4 abreast into the first corner. Has anybody made contact? Miraculously not, but look at the 2 Williams, really hammer and tongs. Oh, and it's at the back, you can see the Jordans have collided with one of the VARs.
Indeed, and I think it was Coulthard had a great slingshot down and moved up into third, has now slipped back. That's Räikkönen in amongst the Renaults, so the Jordans tripping over each other, but I think the Ferraris have regained their position. Indeed, we've got a Ferrari in second place.
We've got Montoya down to third place because Ralf Schumacher has taken the lead. Michael Schumacher is in fourth place. Rubens Barrichello from fourth on the grid has leapt up to the front, and look at this, he's going down the inside of Ralf into the Castrol hairpin. He must be running a lighter fuel load. We've got real team strategies at play here. The two Ferraris against the two Williams. This is very interesting.
Yes, but that's an incredible amount of extra performance Barrichello's had, but we did see in the warm-up this morning, Ferrari a second, and look, Michael Schumacher going for third, Montoya covering the line saying I'll have none of that, but the Ferraris are very, very lively. Can Montoya keep Schumacher behind him until his car and particularly his tyres stabilise?
Well, there is a big performance difference to be had from carrying different amount of fuel. Look at Michael though down the inside of the Vidal chicane. He designed this corner and he's made it work for him. He passes one Montoya for third place, and Montoya's coming back at him round the outside, and the McLaren is getting involved as well. Side by side through the last corner. What a first lap, an amazing first lap.
Absolutely, so the two Ferraris with grip to spare then waltzing off. Both of them have passed a Williams at least in that lap. And look, the two McLarens also and the Renaults, they're all the Michelin runners are close, but nothing like the pace of those leading, or the leading Ferrari. And now you'll see Michael Schumacher very quickly homing in on the back of his brother, Ralf Schumacher in second place.
So Williams a little bit passive off the start line. Ferrari are on the attack. We're on lap 2. Barrichello leads from Ralf Schumacher second. Michael's third, Montoya fourth, Coulthard fifth. Here's the start again.
And look, you'll see the Jordans get together, and it's a half spin from, I would assume, Fisichella, who was the second Jordan on the start. Fisichella goes in too deep. Look, Coulthard was up to third at that point, but the Ferraris came back at him, and so close. There's the Jordans are going to get together. Yes, indeed. Fisichella lost it and tagged his teammate.
It looked to me, as you can see, that Fisichella has damaged his front wing. It looked to me on that tight replay as though Montoya and Ralf touched at the front. They were really close together.
They were indeed. So Ralf making good use of those new tyres then off the line. And once again, James, as you pointed out, Montoya still has not led the first lap despite starting from pole 4 times.
So Barrichello still out front. We're looking in the Jordan garage there at the work going on to Takuma Sato's car. I mentioned that Coulthard was 5th, just to complete it all for you, the top 10. Räikkönen 6th, Button 7th. Jensen Button in the Renault ahead now of his teammate who started ahead of him on the grid. Massa, terrific start from him, up to 9th from 11th, and Heidfeld down to 10th.
And Michael Schumacher has indeed closed that gap. We've got an overheating Jordan, having had a slow lap into the pits, steaming away. They've sent it out in the hope of a little cool down out there. No fans or anything like that on a Formula 1 car. The air is driven through the radiators by the speed alone, and no other cooling whatsoever. That's why they overheat so quickly on the line and in conditions like that. But look, Barrichello had a 2.1 second lead at the end of the last lap, and Michael Schumacher is all over the back of his brother like a rash.
And the two Ferraris are well over a second a lap faster in this first 2 or 3 lap stage of the Grand Prix than the two BMW Williams cars. Is it pure performance? Is it fuel load? As Michael closes right down on the back of Ralf Schumacher, and Juan Montoya is dropping back all the time. Now 2.3 seconds behind Michael Schumacher as the elder brother looks down the inside into the left-hander there. No chance yet, but he's got a good drive out of that corner.
Yeah, Ralf got wide, and we know Michael's feisty into this next left-hander, and he did not close the door on him as Montoya did. Ralf really just left him the way open. There'll be 1 or 2 comments about that, because Ralf could have fought a little bit harder, I think, to maintain that position. And now we've got a Ferrari first and a Ferrari second.
Well, it didn't take them very long, did it? Juan Montoya, we mentioned, he yet to complete lap 1, having been the pole sitter in the lead, and he's done it again here, dropping down from 1st to 4th place. And the two Ferraris are scampering now. It's going to be very interesting to see how much fuel the two Williams have got, because all of that will come into play a bit later on.
Well, if the Williams are not one stopping, there'll be some long faces on the pit wall, no doubt about it, because they need to be very heavy on fuel, otherwise they're going to get absolutely trashed this afternoon.
Let's talk about the relative performance then, shall we? Rubens Barrichello, the race leader, the hair, clearly in this scenario. He's been sent off by Ferrari to attack from the start. and to run away and go. He's currently lapping 1:34.4 was his last lap time, as we look again at the pass of Schumacher.
And Schumacher's been very feisty under braking into that corner in this first 4 laps of the Grand Prix, and Ralph really providing no resistance. That's the sort of resistance Montoya was trying to give him, just closing the line. And Michael said, I'm coming down anyway, I'll leave it up to you. Then it all got terribly messy. Montoya came back, pity we didn't carry on with that. Montoya tried to come back at Michael Schumacher. The 2 McLarens tried to join in the fun, but it stayed status quo in the end.
Well, the 2 Williams is lapping at around about the same sort of pace in the high 1:35 bracket. The 2 Ferraris are a little bit faster than that at the moment in the 34s. And it's interesting that the McLarens are lapping at the same sort of pace also as the 2 Williams cars. So it's quite close still. The first 8 cars separated by less than 10 seconds. And if you take Barrichello out of the equation, just 6 seconds separating 2nd to 8th.
Look, Coulthard and Räikkönen, and indeed the Renaults, keeping the Williams very much in sight, aren't they? There's not a lot of performance difference between those 6 Michelin runners. But at the moment then, Barrichello leads by 2.8 seconds from Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher is now 4 seconds already behind his brother in 3rd place. Montoya 4th.
And Trulli goes straight on in turn 1. That's the big run-off area there before the gravel. And Jarno Trulli throwing away 7th place. He's rejoined behind a BAR, which means he's rejoined in 12th place. And here it is, Martin, that mistake.
Yeah, he snatched the brake, look, and he thought he was going to run into his teammate. So Button then had already passed Trulli. And just really a clumsy manoeuvre down, and there's an extra bit of track there that he can live for another day. But that's going to compromise his afternoon enormously.
Yes, a bit of a mistake there from Jarno Trulli, who's not really had the best of seasons so far for the Renault team, although he's comprehensively out-qualified his teammate Jenson Button by 6-2 now. 6-3 now, beg your pardon, but in race terms, Jenson's definitely had the upper hand as Michael Schumacher sets a fastest lap of the race so far, but the lap times will come down a lot further than that as the fuel load burns off through the course of this race. This is lap 5. Barrichello, 2.8 seconds ahead of teammate Michael Schumacher. Alex Young will have a stop-and-go penalty for jumping the start. Ralf Schumacher is still 3rd, Montoya 4th. Then it's Coulthard and Räikkönen as they started, 5th and 6th. Button is 7th, Massa is 8th, Heidfeld 9th, McNish 10th, 11th is Olivier Panis, and 12th is Jarno Trulli.
So 5 laps completed then, we're on the 6th. The lead maintains around the 2.5 second mark. Michael Schumacher just beginning to ease in his teammate and leader Rubens Barrichello. But now Ralf Schumacher is 9 seconds behind Barrichello, 6.8 behind Michael. They're just falling away. Surely the Ferrari is much lighter. Here's a replay of the start, a different angle for you. And now on board with Ralf. And look how well he gets away. Montoya comes to cover the line, but Ralph's got the momentum, and we can assume he will brake later down there into turn 1. This is a different shot. Somewhere in there, Young has jumped the start, but he's not in picture. That was a replay of the 2 Jaguars getting very, very close, 4 abreast then. And this then is a replay of the first corner, and Ralf indeed brakes later and so nearly touched James, didn't they? You were right. Montoya nearly got into the side of Ralf Schumacher, but Schumacher later on the brake and braver.
But both the BMW Williams cars seemed strangely passive, didn't they, in that opening lap? They were lambs to the slaughter almost. Look at the 2 Ferraris, they're busying themselves in there, getting stuck in already, coming out of turn 1. They're right there behind the 2 Williamses. And look at that McLaren right in the middle of the sandwich there. That must have been David Coulthard, up, as you said, to 3rd place, and he nearly made it stick.
Yeah, and there's the Jordans getting together, and miraculously nobody else collecting them up.
Well, you know, Martin, that was probably the most exciting first lap of a Grand Prix I've seen since the legendary Ayrton Senna opening lap at Donington in '93. Do you remember when he started about 5th or 6th? And by the end of the lap, he was in the lead. But it was all going off in that first lap. Yeah,
it would be nice to see some other action of how Rubens really made his way through those next 2 or 3 corners, because he was absolutely mighty. Let's see. The lead is now down to 1.8 seconds. So Michael Schumacher now beginning to ease his way with another fastest first sector of anybody through this Grand Prix. So Barrichello leads by 1.8 seconds from a closing Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher 9 seconds behind them and 2 seconds ahead of his teammate Montoya in 4th. Coulthard 5th, Räikkönen 6th.
Welcome back. Well, Jonesy, what a first lap, a great lap.
Well, I'm surprised there was only 2 cars that went off at turn 1. I thought there was going to be a lot more of that nonsense going on, to be honest with you. And I was surprised the Renaults didn't get a better start, because they've been doing blinding starts all year, and they've actually now got an improved traction control system. 2
quick things from Minardi. Alex Young doesn't need a 10-second penalty.
No, he needs a 10-second start. I think that he's jumped the start, and we just see him now going through to do his penalty. And Mark had a bit of a moment just a minute ago as well, coming into turn 1. I think we'll see a few cars in trouble at turn 1 as the race progresses.
Back to the boys in Germany.
But Michael Schumacher is closing right in now on Rubens Barrichello. He took 0.4 of a second off him that last lap, and Barrichello will be able to see his team leader right in his mirrors. Lap 9 at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. The positions remain unchanged. Rubens Barrichello leading by 1.3 seconds from Michael Schumacher, but 2 Ferraris at the front. 13.5 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher in 3rd place. Then it's Juan Montoya still in the BMW Williams sister car. Coulthard and Räikkönen holding formation right behind the 2 Williamses in 5th and 6th. Jenson Button is in 7th. Massa going very strongly in 8th place. His teammate from Sauber right behind him, Nick Heidfeld. Alan McNish going very well also in Toyota, and his teammate Mika Salo, who started 10th, has dropped right down into 18th place. Eddie Irvine is 16th, and another miracle man off the start was Enrique Benoldi, who went from 21st up to 13th. Ted, what can you tell us?
James, I think it will have always been Ferrari's plan to get them into lead, what we're seeing here. Run slightly light at the start. I'm actually down at the Williams garage. They don't look overly concerned, a bit worried at the race as it's happening at the moment. I think they're more concerned about Ralf and Montoya's shenanigans with each other at the start. They feel they should have been both concentrating on keeping the Ferraris behind them rather than having a little spat with each other.
Well, would be a fair point, I think, because quite clearly Williams would be unhappy. They knew they had to keep the Ferraris at bay until they stabilised, but frankly the Ferraris are just way too fast anyway. This is Fisichella having a miserable afternoon. He spun in turn 1, ran into his teammate. He runs 21st, and his teammate now running 22nd and last. That's Sato having been just pushed away from behind. So terrible day for Eddie Jordan. But I've got to say, they should be looking worried on the Williams pit wall, James, because Ferrari can afford to 3-stop at this rate and still win the race.
Absolutely, still lapping well over 1.5 seconds faster than the 2 Williams cars, and even if you allow for fuel, the difference between a 2-stop and a 1-stop fuel load, that's certainly a heck of a pace that the 2 Ferraris are setting. And that's what we said really at the start. This is a really, really solid race car as we look there at Eddie Jordan up on the pit wall. His 2 cars running absolutely dead last, 21st and 22nd.
I'm in admiration of Eddie that he's still on the pit wall, frankly. I'm surprised he's not on his way to the airport, because he will not be impressed with that, and quite clearly any point scoring opportunities today look remote, to say the least. Here then, are we going to see, this is McNish getting passed very comfortably, it has to be said, by Trulli, a recovering Trulli who ran himself wide in that turn 1. So that is then Trulli taking over McNish's 10th place.
Yes, Trulli trying to fight his way back. That's team boss of the Renault team, Flavio Briatore, shaking his head, a wry smile, and probably a sneaky fag on the go somewhere. He's the only person who's allowed to, sort of seems to get away anyway, with smoking in the pit lane. But look how close Michael Schumacher is now to Rubens Barrichello. And there's been a lot of sensitivity, Martin, in the paddock this weekend from the Ferrari team. Ahead of, there's a piece of debris there that Michael Schumacher runs over. Looks like a bit of Jordan bodywork, actually. It's bright yellow, isn't it? Yeah,
well, we did, of course, see Fisichella with a damaged front wing, but it looks more like a sticker than anything, doesn't it? So there it comes off now. Now it is a panel, but it's not one I'd expect to be sharp. But you hit anything at 185 miles an hour with a highly loaded tyre, and that's why the drivers are going to so much trouble to to get out of the way, but you can't see that much in front of you in a Formula 1. That's an odd thing to say. You can see down the road, but you've got a face full of dashboard, really, and you're sitting so low in the car that actually stuff just in the first 10 metres in front of you, you can't really see. And look, Ralph sort of straddles it. And what happens? Montoya misses, but now we've got several pieces. Louise.
Down in the Jordan garage at the moment, not a very good atmosphere down here, as you can imagine. It's not the first time that we've seen their two drivers collect each other at the start of a race. You were referring a moment ago to something lying on the track. My suspicion is that it's a piece of Sato's bodywork. When he came into the pits, there was a chunk of bodywork missing from his engine cover, so that could well be what it is. Whether that will cause him further problems, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Louise. And after an accident is when you get the really sharp pieces of carbon fibre, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem down there, James. But what's going through Rubens Barrichello's mind? I mean, he must be thinking, look, if I do a great job this afternoon, I'll probably be asked to move out of the way anyway. So, you know, why push that hard? But we've got a classic situation here where it looks like a comfortable Ferrari 1-2 again, but Barrichello's leading.
Well, it's interesting. I was about to say before we saw that piece of bodywork, there's been a lot of sensitivity this weekend at Ferrari over what happened in Austria. And let's not forget that on Wednesday in Paris, the FIA World Council is meeting to decide what punishment, if any, to mete out to Ferrari for what happened in Austria. Of course, the crowd were booing, international revulsion around the world, really, to what Ferrari did. We heard Bernie Ecclestone on our programme say that he didn't think they could be punished for the team orders, although it was pretty ugly. And he said, in his opinion, we would never see that again from the Ferrari team. They would reflect on that. I certainly got that impression. I certainly, as you can see the bodywork there coming off Fisichella's car again, I certainly got the impression that they would do it differently, but they still maintain that Schumacher is the point man. He's the guy going for the championship. And so it'll be very interesting to see what way they contrive, if indeed they need to contrive, to get Michael Schumacher past Rubens Barrichello here this afternoon, if indeed he isn't already. No, he isn't. Rubens is still in front. This is lap 12, 1 second between them. They're now 19 seconds up the road from the Williams of Ralf Schumacher, with Montoya still fourth.
As we said, though, Michael Schumacher is mighty around this racetrack. There's a couple of corners where you can visibly see the extra speed that he can carry, and I have a feeling he's quite capable of reversing the order all by himself this afternoon.
Well, that'll be interesting, won't it? We certainly look forward to seeing that. He's the closest he has been so far in this Grand Prix. Off the start line, we saw the two Williamses having a bit of a ding-dong, possibly even making contact, but it wasn't long before the two Ferraris were able to get past them. And now Michael Schumacher, who had dropped initially down into fourth place off the start line, is homing in on the lead in an ominous fashion. 7/10 of a second behind Rubens Barrichello.
And Jarno truly is quickly recovering the 8th place now that he was in before he went off the track. So he's done a good job, actually, getting back past. He's passed Massa, and he's back up into 8th place. Mika Salo's drop of 10 places was all about a driving error. We didn't see it on screen, but Salo made a mistake and lost time. Button is keeping Räikkönen very honest, isn't he? Just 0.8 of a second between them in 6th and 7th place.
Yes, a lot of pressure on Jenson Button this weekend, with starting to get these rumours now that Fernando Alonso is in favour within the Renault team, and Flavio Briatore is planning on switching Button out of the team and getting Fernando Alonso in for next season. Jenson was seen going into the Jaguar factory in Milton Keynes last Tuesday. Certainly he's had an offer from them and from Toyota, and possibly even from one or two other teams as well. But it would be a move backwards for Jenson, wouldn't it, really, from where he's been with Williams and then Renault, to go back again, and really not what he needs for his career.
No, he'd be on a downward slope if he's not careful from year one. He's struggling a little bit. Year 2 was difficult. Year 3's been a little bit better, but it's definitely, from the peak was very early on. Just watching McNish having to turn the steering wheel an awful lot on that Toyota, almost as if his steering wheel's connected to his rear wheels and not his front wheels. It's bizarre. I don't know if that's just his driving style or whether he really does have a poorly handling car out there. McNish 11th and fading.
Chasing down the two Saubers in front of him. Another terrific performance by Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber. It's the 8th time this season that he's qualified in the top 10 from 9 races, and a really solid performance from him. But only twice this year so far has he got himself into the points, so they've not really been able to translate their qualifying performance into race results, the Sauber team, and as a result they're dropping back a little bit in the Constructors' Championship, down in 5th place at the moment behind the Renault team. So maybe today a chance for the two Saubers to get some points. Currently 9th and 10th, Massa and Heidfeld.
Well, Barrichello's not going to give up easily. He's just done the fastest first sector of any driver this afternoon, and has in fact increased the lead to 1.1 seconds last time around, and this lap he's another 1/10 of a second up. And this is Bernaldi. Presumably he's going to take to the escape road. You have to commit quite earlier than that, Enrique, otherwise you really destroy the underneath the car. You have to make your mind up if you're going to get through there or not, and dip out early. And at that point Villeneuve comes through as well to take over 14th position.
Yeah, it's a good effort considering he was started 19th on the grid. Jacques Villeneuve said yesterday to the Canadian media, "I am close to exploding." There's been a lot of bad feeling this weekend in the British American Racing Garage. His manager, formerly the boss of BAR, Craig Pollock, and David Richards have had a massive falling out over the whole issue of Villeneuve's salary for next season, reputed to be well over £10 million, and they were really having a go at each other yesterday by all accounts. Villeneuve really unhappy and frustrated at his 19th place qualifying position, and it's amazing to think, isn't it, Martin, that at this racetrack 5 years ago was when Jacques Villeneuve last won a Grand Prix.
It is amazing, and Jacques' point is, listen, honour your contract and stop moaning about it. I'm honouring the contract. That's what it was agreed to pay me, and don't keep telling everybody how much is in my brown envelope, please, at the end of each month, because it's not fair, not reasonable. So very much a spat building up there between Villeneuve, probably David Richards too, and the rest of the team, as the frustration bites ever harder.
It's very unusual to hear a team owner talking about how much. There you can see the Alex Young incident there, just jumping the start, stopping, and then, but that was enough to get him the drive-through penalty. Very unusual, as I say, to hear a team owner actually mentioning how much he pays his lead driver. He clearly wants to put huge pressure on Villeneuve to accept a pay cut for next year. This is the lead battle, though, still 1.1 seconds, still the margin between Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher. The main focus then between these two, but behind them still the two Williamses very close together, the same gap in fact between them as there is between the two Ferraris, and then the two McLarens just dropping back slightly off the back of the Williamses.
Yes, indeed. Young's start would have gone down well in Canada at the last Grand Prix, didn't it? It was way early, that one. But he's about to get lapped, having had that drive through. The gap down to 0.9 of a second now. Not a great lap there from Rubens Barrichello. And Young, he's caught Young in a difficult place too. Young keeping to the inside and the dirty line, so giving the leaders the clean and racing line, which was very good of him. So Barrichello beginning to come under increased pressure, but they continue to lap 1.5 seconds per lap faster than the men you're looking at now. Montoya's just creeping away from Coulthard now too. That gap is 2 seconds.
Well, if they are going to stop twice, the two Ferraris, they're going to be coming in around about lap 25, something around that area. We're in lap 16 at the moment, and they would need a lead of around about half a minute, about 30 seconds, to be able to pit and rejoin ahead of Ralf Schumacher in third place. Currently the margin between them and Ralf is 25.4, so they're right on target if indeed they are two stopping where the Williams and the McLarens are one stopping. But we will see. Time will tell. We've got another 10 laps to go before any of that is going to play out, I think.
Wicked understeer there in the McLaren of Coulthard. I think he got the car in very early and clipped the curb. And the front tyre, the angle of attack of the front tyre, just skidding across the road. Same then for Ralf too. So those front Michelins not working well in the slow corners, and that could also explain, James, why Ferrari have more than the fuel advantage this afternoon.
Well, it's very interesting just going through yesterday after the qualifying session, hearing the different views from all the teams, and there was a more than average number of teams saying they just didn't get the car right yesterday. And it seems that this new addition that they've made to the racetrack, this new section, the first 4 corners, has really put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of the engineers and the drivers finding a perfect setup. A number of teams like Jaguar, Arrows, Jordan, British American Racing, and even to some extent the Renault team failing to find the sweet spot. Kimi Räikkönen complaining also, and a number of drivers really been scratching their heads about how to make their cars work. And Kimi Räikkönen in particular has blocked a break there many times. Look at that.
He's going to lose that position then to Jenson Button. Räikkönen, just as you were talking about it, James, he did it and loses 6th place firmly then to Jenson Button, and just went in too deep. And they're hitting the ground right at the beginning of the braking zone. When you're doing 180 miles an hour, the car is low, the wings are squashing the car and its tyres down, and that's why they're tending to hit the ground right at the beginning of the braking zone. And then, of course, you've lost that retardation with a locked front. Probably 30% of your braking effort has disappeared as the wheel stops turning, and you run in deep, and really you're way past the point of no return at that stage. There's almost nothing you can do about it.
Lap 17 then, and the order stays the same. Barrichello at the front ahead of Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher in still C in third place with Montoya fourth. And just looking through the field as well, Eddie Irvine is still going strongly in 17th place. Could do a bit better than that, though, I'm sure. And Alan McNish is going well as well in 11th place.
Of course, that's where you need to be stronger if you're going to overtake.
Well, there's Mika Salo. We had a driver error on lap 1 that dropped him from P10 to P19, and it looks like he's gone off the road again. Whether it's his fault or the car's fault, we don't yet know, but Salo's afternoon not turning out quite the way yesterday was for him. Down in 18th place as the two Ferraris move ever closer together.
An identical situation to fellow Finn Räikkönen. Locked that brake up early and really could do nothing about it. You've missed the moment to get the major part of your speed off and get the whole thing down. And a bit of rally crossing there then as Mika Salo rejoins, still in 18th place.
But the man on the move at the moment, certainly in the midfield runners, is Jacques Villeneuve, up now right behind his team mate Olivier Panis. And Jacques Villeneuve going so strongly this afternoon, clearly been stung by all the criticisms from qualifying yesterday. "42 laps to go in the European Grand Prix here at Nürburgring. We're entering the zone shortly of the pit stops for the two stoppers, and we'll start to get a picture of exactly what's going on. Certainly our impression up here in the commentary box is that the two Ferraris must be running a lighter fuel load than the two Williamses and the two McLarens, because their pace has been absolutely scintillating constantly and consistently, over a second and a half a lap faster than the others. Just beginning to get a bit closer now, and Rubens Barrichello pushing very hard. A new fastest lap for him on lap 20, a 1:33.2, and that's 2.6 seconds faster than Ralf Schumacher, who stays in third place.
It's faster than some cars managed in qualifying, and I tell you what, James, they are on it. Michael Schumacher just getting really out of shape in the Vidal chicane at the end of the last lap, lost half a second. I think we're going to see a replay of that. That is Rubens Barrichello going through. And if you watch Michael Schumacher behind him, getting well out of shape over the curves and leaping around, and had to get off it on the exit of that corner. So Barrichello is pushing hard, Michael's pushing ever so hard also behind him, and this is a race as far as I can see. I'll be surprised if anybody says at the end of this race we told them to take it steady all the way through, because they are pushing like crazy.
Well, I certainly hope no one's going to say that, because it's certainly great to watch at the moment, and maybe this is what we deserved in Austria and were denied by the Ferrari team orders. Rubens Barrichello has got out front of his teammate Michael Schumacher, and he's intending on staying there from the looks of things. But as Martin said several times, Michael Schumacher is really mighty around this track. Look, that's significant. They've already got enough of a margin to be able to pit and rejoin in front of Ralf Schumacher. That's the magic 30 seconds that they needed, and this is lap 20.
Yes, that's why I said earlier on they could afford the 3-stop and still win this race at this pace. We're 20 laps into the Grand Prix, third distance, and they're half a minute ahead already. Another man on the move is Jenson Button, and there's a man on the move, Alex Young, having Mark Webber having a spin down there in the 100-mile-an-hour left-hander, but it's Schumacher's just done a new fastest lap, James, so they're hammer and tongs at it. It's a 32.9 for Barrichello. Michael Schumacher comes in with a 1 minute 32.8, and the Minardi pits.
Yeah, Webber you saw having the high-speed spin coming into the pits, and this looks fairly routine, although it is quite early for a two-stopper. And very interestingly, Webber next week in Barcelona, Spain, will actually have a test as he rejoins the race after a 10-second stop. He'll have a test next week for the Jaguar team, which is interesting. Paul Stoddart has loaned Mark Webber out to Jaguar, and a lot of speculation connecting Webber with a possible drive for the Jaguar team. Looks like everybody in the paddock is going to drive for Jaguar next year at this rate.
Yeah,
are you driving for them by any chance?
I wouldn't mind a go, but that's absolutely amazing to have other teams' current drivers testing your car mid-season. It's astonishing, in fact, that another man on the move is Jenson Button. Having cleared Räikkönen when Räikkönen went wide in turn 1, Button has moved straight onto the back of David Coulthard, the 5th place man. So Button very fast, given a bit of clear air, and that is why Villeneuve was moving through. Ted.
Yeah, Martin, there's a theory down here really that the Michelins have come here with a tyre that's too soft and that's wearing out. The big cheese of Michelin, Monsieur Edouard Michelin, is actually standing at the back of the Williams pit, and he's exchanging small Gallic shrugs with Pierre Dupasquier, who's that company's motorsport boss. Martin, we said yesterday, didn't we, that the Michelin was the better tyre for qualifying, but haven't Bridgestone got it right today?
Well, they certainly have in terms of Ferrari, of course, but let's not forget that it's Bridgestone P1 and P2, but after that it's Schumacher, Ralph on a Michelin, Montoya, Michelin, Coulthard, Michelin, Button, Michelin, Räikkönen, Michelin, truly Michelin. So the next 6 runners are on the Michelin tyres. Renault ready to come in, but of course it's the Ferrari that's really getting the job done as much as the tyres, Ted.
Well, Jenson Button has just flashed through in front of us with Kimi Räikkönen in hot pursuit, so it must be Jarno Trulli that's making the stop. Indeed it is. And these teams now dividing the race into 3, clearly. This is lap 22 of the 60-lap race, and so Jarno Trulli, the first of the serious contenders to come in and reveal his hand. Should be stationary for, well, not much more than about 9 seconds in a perfect world. Tidy, very tidy.
Yes, that was okay, wasn't it? And we have seen he's had some good speed and good overtaking moves earlier in the Grand Prix. So truly set for a reasonable afternoon. Still cursing that mistake that would have kept him right in there with Jenson Button and the 2 McLarens. But look, the Ferrari's ever closer, James.
Indeed they are. Jenson Button up in the points now, though, in 6th place. And it's been a while as we see Alan McNish make his stop. It's been a while since Jenson's been in the points. He had a good run of finishes earlier in the season, but since then, well, in fact, pretty much since, well, I don't know, 3-4 races ago, he hasn't scored any points. And the 2 Ferraris, as you can see, very close up at the front. And are they going to do something in the pit stops? Are they going to race each other today? Is Michael Schumacher just going to muscle his way past? Is Rubens Barrichello going to resist him? What's going to happen? It's absolutely fascinating.
Well, that shows you just how far ahead they are. Ralph's yet to finish the last lap, and the 2 Ferraris are halfway already around the next one. A healthy gap then he's got back to his teammate. Remember, Ralph on the harder tyre with a 4-second advantage over Montoya. Jenson Button pits in the Renault this time around. So I think those 2 Renaults were flattering to deceive a bit. I think they had less fuel on board than the 2 Williams and the 2 McLarens that they were chasing.
Yeah, Jarno Trulli moves up then. Felipe Massa, Nick Heidfeld getting closer and closer up towards points as well. Disappointing for Jenson Button. A good stop though, but clearly to run at the same sort of pace as McLaren, but to be carrying a lot less fuel is not. And Michael spun! Michael's gone off the road! And the new section, look at this! No, it's not the new section actually, it's on the back of the circuit, leading down to the long back straightaway. Michael Schumacher has made a mistake. How much has he lost? How much has Ralf Schumacher made up?
Well, we said he was a bit feisty in that corner, and this time too feisty. Look, strange one actually. Lost the back end of the car on the way in. Not often you see that nowadays. Obviously traction control doesn't work in that situation. It's a control of power, and the power is off at that point. He's just launched the car in, and I tell you what, he's as surprised as we are with that one. That absolutely caught him out, and there was no early signs of that whatsoever. High tyre wear here, we know. We also know that Bridgestone are a bit concerned with that tyre wear, and it's moments like that that happen if your tyre's starting to just fade away.
Well, no sign of the Ferrari mechanics coming out into the pit lane at the moment to do anything about it. Michael Schumacher continues. He lost 10 seconds as a result of that spin, and that meant that Ralf Schumacher closed up. He's just 26 seconds behind Michael now. And if Michael is going to make a stop in the next few laps, that will not be enough to maintain position ahead of his brother, who we believe is fueled to go to around about lap, well, 32 to 34 possibly. It's going to be very, very interesting, but that was exactly not what Michael needed from a strategy point of view.
Nor the Ferrari pit wall, I suspect. Yep. Whoops, that was not in the game plan. But now, we've seen Barrichello's been able to match him on pace anyway, but I think we're going to see some hot laps from Michael Schumacher in the next few minutes.
I tell you what, if you were Rubens Barrichello now in this situation, as Ferrari we see down below us in the pit lane come running out for one of the two cars, if you were Rubens though, wouldn't you push like mad now? Real content chance to win a Grand Prix here. This is his golden opportunity because Michael Schumacher's dropped it. Barrichello goes past us, so it must be Schuey coming in. Indeed it is. He dives into the pit lane, and this is going to be a tense time because he's only 26 seconds ahead of his brother. Is he going to get out again in front of him, or is he going to lose a place as a result of this mistake? Let's watch it. So anything around 9 seconds would be ideal. Anything less, perfect. Fuel goes in. New tyres at the rear, old ones at the front. 8.6, touch and go, touch and go, touch and go.
I think he should be okay, shouldn't he? But where is Ralph? We can't see him yet. He's just coming into the pit straight now. So I think if Michael can get his...
There's Ralph.
Yeah, no problem. So he has maintained second place. But Barrichello's sitting pretty at this stage.
Well, he'd have been sitting even prettier if Ralf Schumacher had been in front of Michael. But that was a quick reaction, I think, by the Ferrari pit wall. They realised Michael had made a mistake and lost so much ground to Ralf Schumacher. And before he lost any more, get him in quick, change the boots, reset the memory chips, reset Michael's mentality, and get him back out there again.
Well, let's see if Rubens comes in this lap, because I think he is coming in this lap. I think that was the scheduled lap anyway that Michael was due in. I would imagine Michael was pushing extra hard, you know, trying to close that gap just before the pit stop he knew that was very imminent. So Barrichello pits then, leaps the fastest way across that small curve to take a wider angle into that corner. Another good fight going on the racetrack. Coulthard just a fraction behind Montoya for 4th and 5th. Ted.
Here we go then, the race leader Rubens Barrichello comes into the pit, hits his marks now, and the wheels come off, the Bridgestones come off. They don't look too badly worn, I must say. Now the fuel hose is on, there are no problems so far, just getting a bit of rubbish out of those radiators. Now he's off 8.6 seconds, that's an okay stop.
Yeah, it's just 1/10 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher, who's currently on a super hot lap, but had dropped a full 10 seconds behind Barrichello with that spin. So Rubens Barrichello will comfortably rejoin the racetrack in the lead. And he's out of sight, he's already into turn 1. Michael's still negotiating the pit straight.
Well, we heard Ferrari say after Austria that they agreed it was a bit ugly the way that they switched the two cars. They could have done it in a more subtle way, a more underhand way, as they put it, by perhaps just taking a little bit longer over Rubens' pit stop. Today and there, right now, this moment just gone by was possibly an opportunity to do just that. They chose not to do it. They gave Rubens just as good service as they gave Michael, and he's still, intriguingly, about 10-11 seconds ahead of his team leader. Ralf Schumacher, though, he's closed the gap a little bit as a result of those stops. And you can see Montoya there's got some attention from David Coulthard now. Montoya's been strangely anonymous in this Grand Prix, considering he qualified on pole. He's got 2 Maccas right on his back.
Yes, I think he's struggling for pace. He's in the 1:36 now as Montoya. And what's happened is that's backed Coulthard up into his teammate as well. Räikkönen recovering from running wide in turn 1. And Coulthard and Räikkönen really both urgently need to get past Montoya. 1:36 is a very slow pace. Slower, in fact, than most of the 10 runners behind them.
So there's Ralf Schumacher still in 3rd place, just 5 seconds though behind his brother now as a result of the Ferraris having made the break in the early stages with the lighter fuel load. How much of a difference in fuel are we talking about? Well, around about 20 or 25 kilos probably, as the 2 McLarens just make their way around the Minardi on the back of Juan Montoya, and that's enough to give you quite a big advantage in terms of pace, because the penalty for carrying extra fuel around here is pretty severe.
A new fastest lap, and of course lap record being a new layout for Michael Schumacher. He is on those very hot laps we expected, and this fight then is for 4th, 5th and 6th, and there's less than a second between the 3 of them. Montoya running slightly wide, but he can recover from there. Coulthard looking slightly frustrated now.
There you see Michael Schumacher, confirmation of that new fastest lap on lap 27 of this 60-lap Grand Prix. Not even at half distance yet, when we expect to see pit stops from the 2 Williams cars and the 2 McLarens. But how long will Montoya last And do not adjust your sets, folks. I know you think that we're racing with groove tyres in modern Formula One, and you're asking yourself, where are the grooves? Well, they've gone, they've disappeared off those Michelin tyres. They're so worn out as Coulthard begins an attack.
Yes, Montoya covering his line well, though, and we saw early on in the race, Montoya's very prepared to move way over the racetrack to block your line. I would think McLaren will be very satisfied how well they're keeping those two Williams in sight this afternoon. Williams appeared to be stronger around here, but in race condition, I think McLaren are really finding their way now with these Michelin tyres. They're finding out how to prepare them for a Grand Prix much better than they were earlier in the season for their first experience of the new tyres. But McLaren looking strong.
Yes, Williams have one more year's experience, of course, on Michelin. They ran them last year, and McLaren just converted from Bridgestone to Michelin over the winter, and certainly in the first half-dozen Grand Prix of this season, it was lack of familiarity with the tyre and the way it worked that was one of the problems with it. And David Coulthard looks like he's having a move now around the outside. Can he make it stick into this new turn one? Late on the brakes, David. Late on the brakes, round. Oh, Montoya spins it.
And that's damaged Coulthard's steering.
Yes, he's broken his steering.
Yeah, and Montoya dropped it and just tagged Coulthard as he went past. And a broken steering and a broken left rear suspension also. Both cars. There he goes, Coulthard out of the race. So Montoya and Coulthard both out of the race. The first two retirements this afternoon.
Well, absolutely, and we heard about this first corner. All the drivers predicting carnage at the start. It didn't happen. We had a nice clean start, although the two Williamses did get very close together. And strangely enough, on lap 28, we have our first incident down at turn one, and that's really, really unfortunate for David Coulthard, who's been driving absolutely beautifully so far. I don't know if that's a sarcastic round of applause for Montoya for his actions. I think it is, yeah, I don't blame him, actually.
Yeah, it's got to go down as a racing incident, really. I mean, David putting a move down the outside, he's giving Montoya the hurry up. Montoya's probably his attention just slightly taken, goes in too deep. Did he tag the curb on the inside? It's just lifted the back end of his car around. Let's see, he just clipped the curb and just popped the car into a lazy spin, and Coulthard really, I think, blameless in that, but you can't really point a big finger at Montoya and say that was a bad driving error. I think that's just a racing incident where two drivers are trying to max it out on the way into a tiny apex.
Very frustrating for both, particularly frustrating for David Coulthard. And would you believe it, the third straight retirement of this season for Juan Montoya, and the third straight retirement from pole position from Juan Montoya. Still failing then to convert it into a victory. Patrick Head will be giving him a few well-chosen words when he gets back to the pit lane. And obviously very unfortunate for the Williams team, but they've still got one car in it. Ralf Schumacher in third place, now 16 seconds behind race leader Rubens Barrichello. And Michael Schumacher, well, he's 7.1 seconds behind Barrichello. They're lapping about 6 or 7 tenths of a second apart, those two, and still wondering what the Ferrari strategy is going to be at the end of this Grand Prix. This is lap 29.
I think Coulthard, I mean, yes, I think you were right. He was busy being sarcastic, and understandably, I think, to Montoya. I think DC would probably have expected Montoya to be able to handle that a little bit better. Quite clearly, it's Montoya made the mistake, lost the back end of the car, and it's so easy to do in that situation. DC would probably think, okay, I'll go wheel to wheel with you because I trust you, and he'll be disappointed Montoya didn't keep it all together.
Well, the misfortune of those two is Christmas Day for the Sauber team, because Felipe Massa, would you believe, has now been elevated up into 5th place. The young Brazilian and his teammate Nick Heidfeld in the sister car is 6th. So it's, at the moment, the two Saubers are on for 3 points this afternoon if they can keep it going. And I can just see at the corner my other Williams team are in the pit lane. And
this is Räikkönen trying to catch a very slow Ralf Schumacher. He's just lapped in 1 minute 37. Räikkönen in 1 minute 34. So Räikkönen, as soon as he's got clear air, he's just homing straight in on the car in front of him. They both all must be running quite low on fuel now, because we're coming to half distance of the Grand Prix. Norbert Haug, Mercedes team boss, shaking his head. He's lost one of his favoured cars. Louise is in the pits.
Juan Pablo, third pole, third retirement though, big disappointment.
Yeah, I think you look at the tires, I didn't have any tires left. I looked at it, and it was getting out of worse. Where I was screaming to the pits, we needed to do something, and they didn't call me in or anything, and that was it really.
Disappointed that they didn't call you in?
A little bit, because we talked about it before. If the tire were gonna, about to go off, or they were going off close to the pit, so we should pit, and they just told me hang in there.
Thanks, Juan Pablo.
So Montoya saying, I spun the car because my tyres had gone away. I wanted a new set of tyres. That is also then why Coulthard was able to put him under such a lot of pressure. But it's now the same thing happening with the other two cars. Ralf Schumacher under tremendous pressure from Räikkönen, and it seems as if he really has lost his tyres, Ralf Schumacher, and he pits this time around.
Yes, we saw the Williams mechanics come out into the pit lane, and this is really playing beautifully into the hands of the McLaren team. And strategy's been perfect today. Their tyres are being better managed. And Ted, what can you tell us about this stop?
Well, Ralf Schumacher comes thundering down the pit lane towards his mechanics. He is, of course, on the harder Michelin, so the wear on his tyres won't be as bad as they were on Juan Pablo Montoya's. He stops well on his marks. The fuel hose is attached, no problems. More used Michelins go on that Williams. Now it's a long hose time, of course, because it's a one-stop. He's away, no problems.
Yeah, long stop, though. They were cleaning something out of the radiators, and that will play nicely into McLaren and Kimi Räikkönen's hands. Räikkönen has never had a podium position, and this afternoon looks like easily his best chance for a while. And look, that is for position then, isn't it? That is Jarno Trulli, who's on a two-stopper. That is for position with Ralf Schumacher. Yeah,
that's because we've had some salvers into the pits as well. Nick Heidfeld, you can see, rejoining, and Jenson Button and Jarno Trulli in 6th and 7th places. Ralf Schumacher feeding back into that battle as well. And I hesitate to correct you, but Räikkönen has had one podium in Australia this year. First time out for McLaren, he was 3rd. So that's the only points finish he's had this year, in fact. I think he's had one more since then, maybe, but certainly that was his opening account for the McLaren team, and if he can get another one today, that would be very sweet. At the moment, he is comfortably ahead of Ralf Schumacher, Massa, Heidfeld, Button, Trulli. That's the battle for the points-paying positions, and terrific performance by Pedro de la Rosa in the Jaguar, who's 9th, and Olivier Panis in 10th place as well. They've all stopped. Still to stop then as we look at the McLaren going around the outside. This is a replay. And Montoya then, who's already, and we saw how slowly Ralf Schumacher was going at the same time too, and losing the back of the car, says his rear tyres had gone away, and then a helpless, blameless Coulthard really parked on the outside of him, had nowhere to go, and that's the problem with this suspension, James, this carbon fibre suspension. It's very strong in the direction it's meant to be used, but tag it from any other direction, it breaks like an egg. That's 4th place man Massa then in for a stop. It's a reasonable stop, but nothing special, that's for sure. Took a long while to get the fuel hose out. So now let's just go through and reiterate the strategies. Barrichello leads by 5 seconds now from a much faster Michael Schumacher in 2nd. They're two-stopping. Räikkönen has yet to stop. He's clearly one-stopping. Massa is one-stopping. Button, two-stopping. Both Renaults then are two-stopping, and Ralf Schumacher and the other Williams is one-stopping this afternoon. So what does that mean? Well, it means Rubens Barrichello has to come in again, so does Michael Schumacher. At the moment, they're 24 seconds ahead. Michael Schumacher is 24 seconds ahead of Räikkönen. That will increase when Räikkönen makes his stop, so it's looking good for the two Ferraris. That's Peter Sauber on the pit wall. He's trying to work out where his two cars are going to be when everything shakes out, because Kimi Räikkönen, when he makes his stop, is he going to rejoin in front of Felipe Massa? Answer, no, he's not. Probably. Difficult to tell at the moment. It's going to be very tight. Then Jenson Button, Ralf Schumacher. Well, when they all shake out, Ralf Schumacher should end up 4th or 5th. But it's going to be a fantastic fight for all the points-paying positions today, and particularly for position 1 and 2, where Barrichello looks like holding on. On board, though, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen as one of the Minardi's spins.
In the pit lane. So Young attacking the pit lane has lost it on the way in. And there he is on the limit. He's been through the pits once already for his drive-through for jumping the start. And there he takes the quick line into by jumping that little curb and then just plain loses it. Did he make it back onto the racetrack? Not quite. Nearly made it into the end of the pit wall.
To be fair to him, though, Ralf Schumacher did the same thing yesterday in the practice session and went straight onto the track.
Yes, he did. And I think that just shows you that those Michelins are giving up all their grip when they get to the end of their useful life. But it's just fading away very, very quickly. Barrichello leads then by 4.8 seconds from Michael Schumacher, who's now in the same pit straight. They're 25 seconds further ahead of Räikkönen in third. Jenson Button now up to fourth. Ralf Schumacher fifth. Jarno Trulli sixth.
Welcome back. Well, Jones, you really did pick that new segment. Section of the track, everybody's had trouble there.
Well, it's a real sucker corner. It really is. It's a corner that really does suck you into it. And you arrive in there fairly deep over a bumpy section, and then it tightens back up on itself. But in regards to that accident, really and truly, it was a 50-50 job. I mean, I think it was a pretty adventurous move by David to try and go around the outside on a corner that does tighten up like that. Montoya got his back right-hand wheel on the curb and it just flicked him sideways. And he was very unlucky just to touch David on the front right-hand tyre, which just put them both out.
You'd have to be disappointed with the way Williams have dropped back through the field.
Absolutely. I mean, they were to put two cars on the front row of the grid, even though the Ferraris were a second quicker this morning in the warm-up, they haven't shown the sort of form that put them on the front row.
Back to Germany.
John Todd, the sporting director of Ferrari in the foreground. Ross Brawn with the glasses, the technical director, who calls the strategies in the background. Lap 35 of 60 at the Nürburgring for the European Grand Prix. The positions remain unchanged. Rubens Barrichello 4.8 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher in second place. Kimi Räikkönen for McLaren is third. He has yet to make a pit stop, so he's going very deep into the race before making any kind of stop. Jenson Button, who's on a two-stop strategy this afternoon, will have to stop again, is fourth. Ralf Schumacher, who is on a one-stop strategy this afternoon, has made his stop and is in fifth. And then in sixth place at the moment is Jarno Trulli, who has yet to stop again. Felipe Massa and Nick Heidfeld, the two Saubers, are seventh and eighth. They do not have to stop again. That's good news for them. It's also good news for Olivier Panis, who's really, really trying hard in the British-American racing car in ninth place. And he has a sniff, a possible chance of points. He needs another couple of cars to have a problem as Räikkönen dives into the pit lane from third place. We've seen a lot of drivers crash there in the last, well, couple of laps in the last couple of days. And has he got enough to get out ahead of Button?
Yes, indeed he has. Button's got to stop again as well yet. But Räikkönen has a 32-second advantage. Louise.
With David Coulthard, in fact. David, Juan Pablo blamed that accident on his tyres, but whatever the reason, he must be spitting.
Oh, well, just about it wasn't the tooth fairy really that gave him a problem, but yeah, he clearly had problems with his tyres, and I knew it was a risk to go around the outside. Congratulations.
Little conversation just going on between Juan Pablo and David Coulthard here while I'm speaking to him.
I spun.
Hang on in there.
I know that, you hit me. You think I don't know that?
Juan Pablo just explaining what happened. Sorry, David, carry on.
Well, as you said, he spun, but things happen. But if I hadn't been in the outside, clearly he wouldn't hit me. But if I wasn't trying to race, then I wouldn't be a racing driver. I knew it was going to be tight because he had more straight line speed. But I thought, give him room on the inside, and then maybe I can pass him into turn two. But as he says, he lost his back end, and I was in the way. So
You seem pretty much to have his measure in the few laps beforehand.
Yeah, I think Williams, as we know, is much harder on its tyres than our car, and it's disappointing because today was one of the only days this season I remember going to the grid and saying, there must be a problem because the car feels really good. You normally always feel something a little bit strange when you do one slow lap to the grid. And in the race itself, the car was getting stronger. I struggled a little bit, maybe about from lap 10 to 15, but then after that I was coming in strong and I had lots of fuel on board, so we could have been looking good today.
Are you surprised at the amount of problems that the Michelin seem to be having today?
Well, obviously we don't know where what the Ferrari situation is. How much of it is the tyres, how much of it is their car and engine package. But you know, the encouraging thing for us is we were only 6 tenths away from pole in qualifying, which is a step forward for McLaren, and obviously stronger than Williams in the race. And had I been able to obviously get by Montoya, then I think I could have been able to catch up to Ralph.
Thanks, David.
Lovely to hear that exchange between Montoya and David Coulthard there. Martin, are racing drivers normally as polite to each other as that?
And now that one, I think, might run for a little while as well, behind closed doors. But I think why David Coulthard is so unhappy is that quite clearly he had at least 33, 34 laps worth of fuel on board. So he was running much longer than the Williams and better conditioned tyres. But we've seen a lot of grooveless Michelins go into the garage. Now, as long as they've got grooves on when they start, they're legal. Unless when the grooves fade away, the cars start to go faster, the FIA will take some action. But one thing for sure, James, those Michelins were going very slowly. We've seen 3 or 4 drivers now spin in the pit lane on Michelin-shod cars, just trying to recover and make their first stops of the afternoon. So quite clearly, that tyre wear is not helping them. Here then is Ralf Schumacher under pressure from Jarno Trulli. Ralf, though, one stopping, Trulli has another stop to make.
Certainly throughout the weekend, a lot of the talk has been about Michelin needing to show performance. Clearly, if they can get pole position on Saturday, that shows that there's nothing too much wrong with the tyre in outright performance terms. But it's not too great on race day if they are wearing away more quickly than the Bridgestone tyre, as appears to be happening here today at the Nürburgring. That's pretty much the story of the afternoon. And as you heard David Coulthard telling Louise just a second ago, and the rest of us, the McLaren does seem to use the Michelin tyres better and more gently than the Williams, and maybe that will be a factor for Kimi Räikkönen.
And there is Kimi Räikkönen. Jenson Button 1.7 seconds behind him in 4th place, but Button will stop again, as will that man Jarno Trulli. So Renault then are going to struggle, I think, to score some points this afternoon. Their main problem are 7th and 8th place currently Saubers of Massa and Heidfeld are one stopping and looking pretty smart with it as well. So Renault at the moment in a better position than I fear they will be at the end of the Grand Prix. But up front, Michael Schumacher has now reduced the gap to 3.2 seconds. Barrichello's just had a poor lap, presumably with traffic.
Yeah, well, we're expecting them to come in again for their second pit stop, as you can see them just putting a lap on, and it looks like Michael's got a little bit balked there by one of the Saubers. You can see the wave blue flags, that's telling him, the driver, to get out of the way. It's Heidfeld just getting in the way a little bit and through the slow section of Michael Schumacher. That will have lost him a little bit of time. But, well, the 2 Ferraris pitted first time round on laps 25 and 26, so we expect to see them in again around about lap 45. Bear that in mind, 7 laps from now, the 2 Ferraris will come in again.
That's Sato, he's running 18th, remember, had an early stop when his teammate ran into him in the very first corner of the Grand Prix. Sato, last but one. Jung is 19th at the moment. 3 retirements then. Montoya, who ran into Coulthard, and Fisichella with a myriad of problems, pieces falling off the car, and the incident that he created himself. Ted has news on Fisichella indeed.
Yeah, what a miserable weekend for Giancarlo Fisichella at his 100th Grand Prix. He reported on the radio that the car was completely undrivable, quotes, and something must have broke after that first corner crash with Sato. He just came into the garage and parked it.
Oh well, the end of a miserable afternoon. Now, I think it's the last 44 Grand Prix, James, there's been a Ferrari driver on the podium, and it looks very much like it's going to be 45 this afternoon. You were right when you corrected me earlier on. Raikkonen has had a podium. It was Button I was thinking of, who's never had a podium. He's currently lying in 4th position, is Jenson Button, but it looks pretty strong, doesn't it, for Ferrari right now?
It does, and the interesting battle then, well, there's 2 very interesting battles here. First of all, what is going to happen at the front? Are Ferrari going to let Rubens Barrichello win this race, or are they going to put Michael Schumacher in front of him? If so, how are they going to do it without upsetting Martin and I and the rest of the world? Well, it'll be very interesting to see what they do. My hunch, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think they're going to let Rubens win this race. That's just me. It's lap 40. We've got 20 to go, and I think they're going to let him win it because Michael is, after all, the small matter of 43 points clear in the championship, and it is, after all, the FIA hearing next Wednesday in Paris. Call me cynical. In 3rd place is Kimi Räikkönen from McLaren. 4th Button, as Martin was saying, and they're really in a great scrap the two Renaults, 4th and 6th Button and Trulli, with the two Saubers for the points today. So it's terrific action, and there's nothing in it between them, bearing in mind that the two Renaults do have to stop again.
Yeah, the Ferrari hierarchy are unhappy about what the likes of James and I and other people said about Austria, and the crowd reaction, I think the fan reaction spoke for itself. Ross Brawn is one of my dearest friends, and I know you're close to him, and you had a bit of a run-in with him, James, sort of trying to... Ross explaining his position and you explaining your position, James. It's uncomfortable, but I think we were only voicing the views of the fans, really. But I can understand Ross's position. They want to win the race, they want to win the World Championship, and they're entitled. It's a team sport as far as they're concerned. They want to use their team in any way they seem fit. But I think the reaction from Austria, if they manoeuvre today, it'll go down badly. But Michael Schumacher still appears to be fast enough to do something for himself in his last 20 laps.
Yep, he's closed down to under 3 seconds now behind Rubens Barrichello. And let's not forget, he was less than a second behind his teammate earlier on, before he made a mistake. Michael Schumacher dropped it out of the back of the circuit and lost 10 seconds as a result, as Alan McNish comes in from 10th place, a very creditable 10th place for him, to make his second stop of the afternoon. And a lot of question marks about him for next season. Will he hold on to that Toyota drive, or will any one of a number of people who've been mooted as possibly replacing him? It ranges from David Coulthard at the most ridiculous suggestion, right the way through to people like Alex Birch, which is more practical, possibly Heinz-Harald Frentzen for next year. As you can see, the Ferrari there just re-lapping the Jaguar out on the track. At the moment, De La Rosa 14th, Eddie Irvine in 17th place for Jaguar.
Michael lost a bit of time on this lap, hasn't he? Negotiating the traffic mostly. Barrichello over the line then, 133.4. Michael, 133.1, so he still managed to close the gap down further, down to just 2.5 seconds now, but they're a minute ahead of third place man Räikkönen, over a minute, although of course he's not got to stop again.
Exactly, they do have to stop again, and they'll be losing about half a second of that advantage. But nevertheless, on paper, they've still got a 39-second lead over the McLaren. That's not a bad effort, really. Over 41 laps, it equates to about a second a lap performance difference here at the Nürburgring. A stunning, indeed a crushing demonstration of just how fast this Ferrari really is. But this then still the battle for 5th place, Ralf Schumacher and Jarno Trulli. And as I said before, this is lap 42. Any time from 45 onwards, we'll see these two stoppers coming in again. That's the two Ferraris and the two Renaults in particular.
Alan McNish has dropped down the field, having just pitted. He's down 14th and falling down the computer, unfortunately. McNish, who's put in a solid drive today, no doubt about it. Other good efforts, I think, as we watch Räikkönen one more time locking up that inside front tyre. Good efforts, I think. Bernoldi's 10th, Villeneuve up to 11th from 19th on the grid. We're watching Frentzen just getting a little bit too intimate with those curbs. Got away with it on the exit, though. And there is the Toyota of Salo, I believe it was. He's down in 15th at the moment. That's third place man Räikkönen.
Well, it started out with some question marks over at this Grand Prix. What would happen with the tyre wear? Would Michelin's fall back, and would the Bridgestones come forward? Indeed, that has played out to be the case. A shame for Bridgestone, really, that they don't have any other top teams apart from Ferrari, really, at the front of the grid, because really it's the Saubers who are benefiting today from the performance of the Bridgestone tyres. Massa and Heidfeld looking like they're going to come at least 5th and 6th, and may just do slightly better than that if there's any problem with the two Renault stops. And Ferrari out in the pit lane. Schumacher stopped first last time by. Will it be him to stop again first this time by?
I'd be very surprised if it's not, actually. So Michael put in a very good first sector on this in-lap. He knows he somehow needs to get that gap down nearer the 2-second mark. If he's got a good in-lap, with it, he can make 2 seconds. A good in-lap and a slightly better stop and a good out-lap, he can do it, but he's got to close it down. At the moment, the gap was 3 seconds, and that's a lot to make up, isn't it? Unless there's any kind of problem on Barrichello's stop.
And don't forget that Rubens Barrichello himself will have another lap before he has to make his stop, so he can put the hammer down as well. He's set his fastest first sector so far. He's not going to give away the lead easily, but look at Michael closing in on him.
Mike and Rubens will be delighted to see that Minardi go in the pits, because this is a crucial lap, and Michael Schumacher does pit as expected, and he'd taken a full half second out of Barrichello on that lap up to that point. Ted, take it over.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher comes into the pits. Are Ferrari going to let Rubens Barrichello win this race? Oh, well, who can tell? Michael stops well on his marks. The tyres come off, the new tyres go on. There will be no problems with his stop, we hope. Now 6-7 seconds, he's away, 7.8.
And I think they stopped the clock a little bit late there. They did take some debris out of the side pods as well. They did a full service on it, no doubt about it, and a relatively short fill then for the final 17 laps.
Barrichello, though, has just set yet again his fastest first sector. He's not going to give up easily. He's pushing very, very hard indeed. He's going to be coming in next time by surely, because that was the pattern last time. Although I have to say the Ferrari mechanics do appear to have gone back into the garage, so maybe there's 2 laps between the stops of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, but Barrichello ain't going to give this one up easily. It's certainly the others are completely out of it as far as race wins are concerned, unless something dramatic happens to the 2 Ferraris. It's between the 2 of them. As you can see, the Minardi just getting out of the way there of third place man Kimi Räikkönen, just waiting to see whether the Ferraris are coming out with more tyres for Barrichello. No sort of hurry as far as I can see. So Barrichello pushing hard again, sets the fastest for him, middle sector as well. And this is great stuff here on lap 44 of 60. 17 to go at the Nürburgring. Who is going to win the European Grand Prix?
Räikkönen maintaining third place, just 1.2 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. Where Shaw Button has got to stop again. Michael Schumacher on an absolutely blistering middle sector of his outlap, James, so he knows, you know, they are racing. He knows he's got to pull something special out of the bag. So does Rubens. Rubens just done his personal best and fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 32.7, and traffic then ahead for the Ferrari. But this is a fight over 7th, 6th, 7th and 8th place. The 2 Sauber drivers, and now Barrichello will be pitting.
Yep, the Ferrari mechanics are out. Now this is such a difficult decision for Ferrari. If they let Barrichello win, I guess they could argue, why didn't you do it in Austria? If they don't let him win, it stands up for their principles of having one guy who goes for the title, win it as quickly as possible. But a lot of people aren't going to like it again. Who knows what's going to happen here? And will it come down to the pit stop? They're waiting expectantly. It's silence in the pit lane. It's noisy as all hell inside the cockpit of that Ferrari, inside the head of Rubens Barrichello. Does he know already what's happening here this afternoon? Is he pushing hard? You bet he is. Again, he sets a fastest middle sector of the race so far, and Michael Schumacher has got traffic, and that will play into Barrichello's hand. He's got 3 cars to pass Michael Schumacher. This is going to be the decisive stop then of the afternoon. In comes Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, and the cars he has to pass are all racing each other as well and will not easily yield. There's a nasty little bump, there's a drain just before that Ferrari pit. Barrichello will have felt it many times as he goes onto that concrete section.
The clock ticking. There's Michael. There's the 2 Saubers. Barrichello out in 7.6. Nice stop by Ferrari. He's going to lead the motor race, and he might even have added to his advantage, because we're still waiting for Michael Schumacher to come out of the final corner. There he is, and Rubens Barrichello retakes the lead, and he may well have just added a little bit more, because Michael's still got a Sauber between him and the race leader in the crowd. Well, they're certainly enjoying this.
Surprisingly, really, isn't it? Because obviously very much a German crowd. They're all, virtually all of them, wearing Ferrari gear, so they'll be happy to see a Ferrari victory, but I would have thought they'd prefer to see a Michael Schumacher Ferrari victory, his 60th of his Grand Prix career. But at the moment, Barrichello has track position, has the high ground, and it's going to be a straight fight to the finish.
Well, in Austria, shortly before the finish, Ted Kravitz spotted a piece of paper being passed between Jean Todt and Ross Brawn on the pit wall. And shortly afterwards, we saw Barrichello pulling over and letting Michael through. Any pieces of paper being seen down there at the moment, I wonder?
We're seeing 2 cars leave the pits that were fighting for position very closely. Villeneuve and Frentzen over 10th and 11th. And it seems as if Villeneuve left the pits much earlier.
So Barrichello still leading from Michael Schumacher. Kimi Räikkönen 3rd, Ralf Schumacher up to 4th then because of the stop of Jenson Button, who maintains 5th place ahead of Felipe Massa. So that's worked out great for the Renault team, and Button looks set for some points this afternoon, but Massa is holding on in 6th place. From the performance of the Bridgestones this afternoon, on board with Frentzen.
McNish is very, very slow under braking. We saw him passed earlier in the race, so McNish really not got a lot of confidence in his Toyota down into turn 1. Frentzen not had a good afternoon. He's way behind his teammate who's 11th. Frentzen is now back down to 14th. McNish then, of course, 13th.
Yeah, been a good run for Alan McNish. And Frentzen in the arrows there. Not done very much development on that car so far this season. And yet still Frentzen able to launch it up into the 10, 11, 12 on the grid from time to time, and that's pretty good effort, says an awful lot about his driving. Today though, this is the battle for 13th place.
Barrichello's lead down to just 1.4 seconds then. Michael Schumacher on a charge, and surely that's the action we need to see very soon, because that's going to be super close any time now.
Lap 48 at the Nürburgring. You're looking at the pass for position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen goes past Alan McNish. There it is on board.
Yes, much better on the brakes. He's just been in for a stop, has Frentzen, so he's got new tyres and an awful lot of grip. The gap down to 1.4 seconds last time around. Michael Schumacher 2/10s up already in the first sector and chasing down his teammate. Now, will the team call for some strategy, or will they allow them to race to a certain point? If they're going to allow them to race, if I was the team boss, I'd say, OK, you can go to lap 55 out of 60, then call it off, then coast to the end of the Grand Prix, because there's no point in them fighting each other and braking.
Wouldn't you not tell them, and then on lap 55 you'd call some orders, rather than give them a target at which they'd have to stop racing, because that sounds a bit like trouble, doesn't it? You're asking for trouble.
Absolutely, but the decision, I think, would be on the pit wall. Okay,
made at that time.
We will give them a certain amount of time to sort this out, then it's going to have to be status quo.
Well, I still fancy the Barrichello's going to be allowed to win this race. Louise is down in the pits, though.
Yeah, not been the best of days for Eddie Irvine, and now it's come to a premature end as well. He's parked his car in the garage with hydraulics failure.
So Eddie Irvine then the 4th man only out of this Grand Prix as we move into the final stages. The other 3 being Montoya, who spun off in turn 1 and ran into Coulthard, and Fisichella with a range of problems. Then he eventually parked the car, said it was undrivable.
Well, Michael Schumacher now back under a second. It says 1.024, but it's less than that now behind Rubens Barrichello. And as the sports commentator once said, it feels like déjà vu all over again, because this reminds me very much of Austria. We've got 12 laps of the 60 still to go. Ferrari are 1 and 2 at the Nürburgring, and everybody is wanting to know what is going to happen between the two of them. Behind them is Räikkönen 3rd, Ralf Schumacher still 4th, Button still 5th, Massa still 6th, Heidfeld 7th, waiting for anybody in the top 6 to drop out so he can score a point today. Trulli 8th, Panis going very well in 9th for British American Racing, and then Jaguar in the top 10 as well for the first time in a while in the shape of Pedro de la Rosa. Look how close, though, Michael Schumacher is to Rubens Barrichello now.
Yes, the old concertina effect, where you appear to close in under braking and lose out again under acceleration. But Michael, for me, has the better car, or the greater confidence in the braking zone. I think if he gets a look at the side of Rubens Barrichello, he'll be past him into that Vidal chicane, or more likely down here into turn 1. The rest of the lap, I think Barrichello's probably got the edge, actually, but just to demonstrate their superiority this afternoon, even if they look very cool and calm about it, they've lapped everybody up to 5th place Jenson Button, who's 80 seconds behind them.
Yeah, and the gap to 3rd place Kimi Räikkönen is 55 seconds after 49 laps. That's well over a second a lap faster here today than the opposition, and everybody really is going to have to go away and scratch their heads after this. Certainly it was a Michelin story in qualifying, but today it's a Bridgestone story. They've done the business for Ferrari. The Ferrari car, engine, aerodynamics, drivers, tyres, the whole thing has been right on song. And Michael Schumacher just staring at his teammate ahead of him. Michael Schumacher's looking for his 60th Grand Prix victory. Rubens Barrichello looking for only his second. Hasn't won a race now since Germany 2000. And it would be ironic, wouldn't it, if he scored his second victory also on German soil. A conversation there between Ross Brawn and one of the two drivers, Jean Todt, looking on. Are orders being passed? Is Rubens slowing down? Is Rubens going to win? Stay with us. I'm sure you're not going anywhere, because the next 11 laps are going to be very interesting.
There's going to be something dramatic happening. We're not quite sure what, are we? But I spoke briefly to Rubens in the restaurant last night. There he sat at the table with his baby boy, who had a hammer in his hand, hammering away at the table, and his wife and his nanny. And it's difficult to equate the two scenes of that Barrichello and then this one in front of us right now, leading a Grand Prix. But leading he is.
He has led it on merit since more or less the start. We got a great start away by the two, certainly by Ralf Schumacher, who got ahead of his teammate Montoya. Strangely passive, though, the two Williams cars in the early stages, and they were easy meat for the two Ferraris on lap one. A tremendous first lap here at the Nürburgring, in which Rubens Barrichello got the lead. And we're hearing from our F1 ITV pit crew as Ross Brawn, he's not giving anything away, just having a munch on a bit of energy food there, Ross. And we're hearing from our F1 ITV pit crew that Jean Todt has been pushing the button on his desk marked Rubens Barrichello quite frequently as he talks on the radio. So he's been talking to Rubens, whether to reassure him that they're still racing or whether to tell him to when he's got to move over, we don't know. But we're now on lap 51 of 60, just 10 to go. And there is Jean Todt, and I think they're probably quite enjoying the attention, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they've told them to hold station. I don't know, it may prove to be wrong, but I just can't help but feel there's less energy going on out there right now. And I think you'll find they're coasting.
Well, if they are coasting, they're coasting at a heck of a pace. 134.017 that last lap for Rubens Barrichello, and Michael Schumacher 33.9. And let's see how much it backs off as they cross the line. 34.7 and 34.8. So indeed, 9/10 of a second, almost a second slower this lap. Michael Schumacher was compared to the last, and a formation finish rather like, well, it's what you ideally want at Le Mans, isn't it, when you come across the line at 4 o'clock. The formation finish traditionally of the team cars, and maybe we're going to get it here in Germany this afternoon. And how popular would a Rubens Barrichello victory be, Martin? Sorry? How popular would a Rubens Barrichello victory be? I
think it would be very popular and quite timely and well-deserved, I have to say. And I respect Ferrari for listening. I mean, they've been pretty feisty this week, haven't they, the Ferrari hierarchy? As I said earlier on, really defending their corner on the stuff that's been going on. Don't blame them. As you said, they've really circled the wagons around them. But to quote the great Murray Walker, just the body language of those Ferraris, it just seemed less frantic all of a sudden. And I can't help think that they've been told, OK, it's lap 50, 10 to go. Obviously, the boss has decided we'll give them till 10 laps to go. Then they'll have to follow and leave it at that.
Well, if that is the case, it's going to be very interesting, isn't it? It raises all sorts of questions. Why didn't you do it in Austria? I suppose it was earlier in the championship. It was 3 races ago, but really the threat from Williams at that point, not much greater than it is now. Anyway, we've got 9 to go here at the Nürburgring. Are we right? Is Rubens going to be allowed to win this one purely on merit as he comes through to complete another lap, and we see the retirement of Alex Young? We see that the pace more or less the same on that lap of the two Ferraris, high 34s. Räikkönen still third, Ralf Schumacher still fourth, fifth Button, sixth Massa, 8 laps to go before a dramatic, no doubt, conclusion here at the Nürburgring.
Welcome back. You're riding with Frentzen in the Arrows, but Jonesy, this is a nail-biter, handful of laps left. What do you think?
Well, I can get a 50% right, I guess, but I don't know. If I was Ferrari, I would be defending what I did in Austria and therefore have the right to do it again. It goes against popular, belief. I believe that the cars should be able to race. Hard one to call, Daz, but in all honesty, if they want to sew the championship up for, now we got the Toyota off. If they want to sew the championship up for Schumacher, this consolidates another 3 points for him over and above Barrichello. Hard one to call. Very quickly though, that viewer from Brisbane wrote us a note or a fax and said, what about giving the points to whoever they want and let the other fellow win the race? I mean, that now comes into play, doesn't it? Absolutely, and has done several times this year. I think it's a great idea. Okay, back we go.
54 out of 67 to go then, including this one here at the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. The positions remain unchanged. Rubens Barrichello is just over half a second ahead of his teammate Michael Schumacher in second place. Kimi Räikkönen still third, Ralf Schumacher still fourth. Button is still going strongly, looking like points finishing position today for him in fifth, and Felipe Massa going to get some points for Sauber in sixth. Interestingly, we're up here in the commentary box just to the right of where that camera view was, and we've got different nationalities either side of us. The Irish on the left, the Germans the other side of them, the Dutch on our right, and we've had faces leaning across the windows. Are they going to switch them? Everybody's wanting to know the same thing, and Martin and I are both saying no. We're going to go for a Rubens Barrichello win today. The Dutchman's not so sure, and the Irish are, well, they're just going crazy, thoroughly enjoying it, as I'm sure you are at home as well.
What's strange is while they're cruising around, James, sort of just having fun in this last few laps, they're still lapping faster than half the field. Ted, what can you tell us?
Martin, I can tell you every single mechanic in every single pit garage in this pit lane's hearts are beating. We all want to know what Ferrari are going to do as well. I can tell you Ross has been on the radio to both drivers, and every time the Ferraris pass the pit wall, Jean Todt gets out of his seat and peers over the top of the pit wall just to have a look at them as they go by. I don't think they're going to do anything as obvious as passing little notes to each other as they saw in Austria, but I do think we need to remind everyone that in just 3 days, Ferrari are up against the FIA beak in Paris in the World Council. Martin, how much will this result affect that meeting, do you think?
Well, the meeting should all be about looking back at as Salo drops out of the race. He's had a dismal afternoon. He was down in 16th place anyway, becomes the 5th retirement of the Grand Prix, 6th retirement now the Grand Prix. Frentzen spinning out. He was busy fighting Villeneuve, and clearly he's fallen off his tail now. But really they're getting together in Paris to talk about what happened on the podium in Austria, so this shouldn't affect it. But I'm sure Ferrari would like to say, okay, we're hearing you, we're listening to you, the FIA, we're listening to you, the fans, and this is our reaction to that. And that's what happened to Frentzen. Tried to go down the inside of Villeneuve for position. That was for 12th position, and when he got there, couldn't hold the back end.
Similar in a way to what happened with Montoya and David Coulthard earlier in the race, almost identical in fact. Yeah, exactly the same place. The incident that took out both Montoya and Coulthard while they were battling for 4th place in this race. It's been eventful. The two Williamses off the start line got the run. Montoya dropping back though, and the Ferraris really gobbled them up in the first lap, and they got the lead. Rubens Barrichello has led more or less since the beginning. We've had 2-stop strategy from Ferrari today against a 1-stopper from McLaren and Williams. It's worked for Ferrari, but frankly, once they got in front off the start line, they were always going to win this race. The question was always going to be which of the two drivers was going to win it. But it's been a good day also for Kimi Räikkönen and McLaren. He needed a points finish, Räikkönen, because he hasn't had one now for quite some time. In fact, he's only scored 7 points. He had one in Canada, I beg your pardon, but before that he hadn't scored since Australia. And 5 retirements for him, so a good afternoon's work for Räikkönen. Ralf Schumacher going to get something out of the afternoon in 4th place. Button looks like he's going to get 2 points for 5th, and Massa 1 for 6th. And frantic radio traffic, but we're all building this up into a great drama, as if they're having some conversation or some row over the radio about whether or not they may or may not switch it. It looks to me, and I agree with you, Martin, it looks as though it's just how are the temperatures, everything okay, right, lap at this pace, just take it nice and easy. They're now doing low 1 minute 35s, which is a bit slower than Räikkönen and Ralf Schumacher, who are 50 seconds behind them. That suggests to me that they have definitely settled for a Rubens Barrichello 2nd victory of his career.
So McLaren have outraced Williams this afternoon. They've made a better job of their tyres. They've managed to keep them intact longer. So Ralf Schumacher's down in 4th place. Räikkönen looking pretty solid for that final podium position behind these two, isn't he? Button's done a great job this afternoon. 2 stops, but had a good pace all the way through, and that then enabled him to keep ahead of Massa and Heidfeld in the 2 Sauber Ferraris that are 1-stopping. Truly went wide in the first corner, made a big mistake, and that's cost him points this afternoon, no doubt about it.
Just saw there Ross Brawn again, the Ferrari sporting technical director, just radioing one of the 2 drivers. Certainly a great mentality at Ferrari of all for one and one for all. It doesn't matter if you're Michael Schumacher or the bloke that rolls out the pasta in the morning and makes the food. They are a team, they go racing together, they win together, and they lose together, and that's really been the message coming out from Ferrari since Austria. They realised they really dropped the ball there. They created a public relations howler. I'm sure their sponsors had something to say about it as well. And here this afternoon, they are winning together again. A 1-2 on the cards for Ferrari. And there's Ralf Schumacher, who has been outperformed today, down in 4th place.
Yeah, Ralf Schumacher, I think the reason Frentzen spun while he was trying to overtake Villeneuve is he was getting very, very close to running into the back of 4th place man Ralf Schumacher, who of course was a lap ahead of him. But Frentzen very close to taking his fellow countryman out of the Grand Prix indeed.
3 to go, including this one, at this extraordinary and highly eventful European Grand Prix. That's the enormous Mercedes stand you can see there on the right and in the background as well. The 140-odd thousand people who've made their way to this track. It took me an hour to do what is normally a 15 or 20-minute journey this morning. Such were the number of people coming in. Camper vans have been strewn all over any grass verge within sight of the Nürburgring. The traditional campsites full to overflowing by Thursday afternoon, would you believe? They love their motor racing in this part of the world. They have 2 Grand Prix, one here and one at Hockenheim to celebrate, and they bring their vans and they bring their massive stereo systems and their gallons and gallons of lager, and they just sort of drink themselves into a stupor, from what I could tell, for days on end, come along on a Sunday, blow their air horns and hope to see a Ferrari win, and preferably with a German in it. But I think they'll be pretty happy with today's outcome, because their man Michael Schumacher is even further ahead in the World Championship, one step closer to his 5th world title, and it's got to be a good day if you wear red in the grandstands.
Absolutely, and of course then another good reason not to bother to swap these two around. Michael's biggest challenger, really, Montoya and his brother Ralf are scoring significantly less or no points. Ralf down there in 4th place for 3 World Championship points, and Montoya out of the Grand Prix altogether. So as you said, Michael looking super strong, isn't he, for that 5th title?
He is. He'd be 46 points ahead of his brother and 49 points ahead of Juan Montoya if he were to hold on here this afternoon in this position. And significantly, I think Rubens Barrichello would move up to the same amount of points as David Coulthard. He'd be equal 4th in the World Championship. So there's clearly a little bit of that at work. Now, just a month ago, you could have got 33 to 1 on Rubens to finish 2nd in the World Championship. I thought about putting a little bet on that, and I'm beginning to wish that I had now.
Barrichello for me easily the driver of the day. Good start, good first lap, great first lap indeed. And let's not forget, Michael Schumacher lost his chance to win this Grand Prix by spinning off the racetrack. Michael Schumacher made a mistake, and that is where he really gave up any chance, because I think he's been marginally faster all afternoon.
Probably. He certainly attacked some of the corners in a different way from Barrichello, but it was Barrichello who was the aggressive one off the start. He took the fight to the 2 Williamses from the start line in what was really one of the most exciting opening laps of any Grand Prix we've seen for many years. And stay with us to see that again, I'm sure, with Jim and Tony in the studio after the conclusion of this race, because it was stunning. And it was him that took the fight to the Williamses. And as you said, it was Michael that made the spins, lost 10 seconds, and it's therefore poetic justice that Rubens Barrichello should be allowed to win this race. Having said that, we've got 3 miles to go, and I really don't want to look. I really don't want to look out of the last corner. I'm turning away.
They're not going to swap them around. No way are they going to do that. I feel sorry for Ross Brawn and Jean Todt down there on the field. Those cameras must be burning a hole in the back of their necks. There's no way, James, they're going to swap them around.
Hey, listen, I said about lap 30 they're going to let Rubens win it. So, I mean, a bit of a punt, but you just get that feeling today. Just the way that it's all been this weekend, just the way it's all been really for the last month. Formula One needs this result. Rubens Barrichello certainly needs this result. You're going back almost 2 whole years since he won a Grand Prix. He's been sitting in pretty much the best car in Formula One ever since. He's had bad luck. He's had the lion's share of the unreliability at Ferrari. Let's face it, Michael Schumacher has had 14 straight finishes without breaking down. And they're standing up now all around the track and celebrating, because it's been a big, big day. And you can hear the air horns. It's formation finish for Ferrari. Just a couple more corners to go now. Up towards the Vidal S. Rubens Barrichello with Michael Schumacher just watching, must be sick of the sight of that rear wing, but he'll be happy too. And I'm sure he'll be happy for Rubens Barrichello. Now, don't you go hitting that brake, Rubens. Don't you go hitting that brake. come across the line and win the European Grand Prix. Rubens Barrichello takes his second career win. Well done, Ferrari. A good PR decision today, but a great performance by the two red cars, and a fantastic afternoon of Formula One racing here in the Eifel Mountains. Yes, Rubinho. Yes, yes, yes.
Well deserved too. Fast, controlled, no mistakes whatsoever. Barrichello, a deserved victor of the Grand Prix. It was Michael Schumacher that made the mistake, even though he was faster on the day, and Räikkönen has yet to cross the line. He's about 50 seconds adrift now because of the very slow pace of the Ferraris in those final 10 laps. So Räikkönen taken the second podium of his career.
So Brazil beats Germany here at the European Grand Prix. It's a good possibility that Brazil-Germany will be the final of the World Cup next Sunday afternoon. And what will happen in that, I wonder? Certainly Rubens has got it in early, the result. Räikkönen finishes in third place, his second podium for McLaren-Mercedes this season so far. And Ralf Schumacher becomes Michael Schumacher, his brother's nearest challenger for the championship, moves clear of teammate Montoya, who crashed out today with David Coulthard. So Ralf Schumacher now goes clear second. Jenson Button, well, he certainly needed that result today with all the talk that's been going on this weekend about how he's out at Renault, how Flavio Briatore, the boss there, plans to put Fernando Alonso in that seat next year. And Jenson seemed a bit down, a bit dejected whenever you've seen him around the paddock this weekend. Well, hopefully that will have swayed things a bit in his favour, because he certainly outperformed Trulli today. Jarno Trulli down in 8th place. No doubt who the winner is, though.
Crowd surprisingly happy. Really, they're normally here only looking for a Michael Schumacher win. I tried to go around the old circuit on my motorbike last night, and it's just parked for miles and miles with campers and tents, and the crowd is just massive here, and all around the place. They don't ever seem to go to sleep. They must drink 100 litres of beer each through the weekend if you see some of them out there. But they seem very content, don't they, with a Ferrari 1-2 and with Barrichello being the winner.
They do indeed. Confirmation then of the result. A formation finish for Ferrari. A good day at the office for McLaren-Mercedes. They've outraced BMW Williams here, and not many people would have thought they were going to do that this morning, but they have done it, and that's great news for Mercedes, because they've put one over on BMW, who recently have had the edge on them. Jenson Button there in 5th, Massa 6th, getting another point for Sauber. Heidfeld right behind him in 7th. Just going through the rest of the classified finishers, we had a number of retirements. Mika Salo, Alex Young, Eddie Irvine, Juan Montoya and David Coulthard collided with each other. And Giancarlo Fisichella, who had it's been a miserable weekend for the Jordan team after 3 straight points finishes. There you can see the full retirements. Well, they'll be partying hard in Brazil. I'm sure they were very happy when they beat England in the World Cup, but this guy's pretty popular over there. This is certainly the biggest sporting event happening anywhere in the world today. And, well, we had tears on the podium last time, didn't we? Did we get him again?
No, I don't think we'll get him again. I think that was an emotional hurdle that Rubens cleared in Hockenheim when he won his first ever Grand Prix after so much hard work. But I think it's going to be an altogether happier man today on the podium. But maybe when that national anthem goes off, to get the tissues out for him. Still just a small sign of grooves on those Ferrari rear tyres. You can just about see them, but their wear rate very high here today, despite them 2 stopping.
Let's have a look at the emotional response. Yes, Rubens, well done. That's for Eduardo, his little boy. He's so happy. There's Kimi Räikkönen shaking his hands. Now let's look at the body language with Michael Schumacher here. Yep. A team win. He deserved that. Michael would be the first one to admit it. But let's not kid ourselves here, folks. He won this race on merit. As Martin was saying a moment ago, it was Michael that made the mistake. He was the one that had the spin. And Rubens has won the European Grand Prix, yes. There's Jean Todt, the man who told him to move over in Austria. There's his wife, Silvana. His manager, Fred, there just to the right. Yeah. All the team, over 60 of them come to every Grand Prix from Maranello. And the little message from Todd there, there's an extra £5 in your pay packet tonight. Something like that.
He's a nice guy, Rubens Barrichello.
Definitely. Well, you raced alongside him, of course, at Jordan. You know him well.
Yeah, he's a very nice man, and level, sensible, and reasonable person. And I think that's why everybody was unhappy on the Austrian thing, because they wanted him. The whole paddock wanted him to win the Grand Prix. And I think they'll be very happy this afternoon. Great show from Ferrari, though. Total and utter domination. And as I said earlier on, it's not all about tyres, because the next few places were filled with Michelin runners. It's also about a supreme performance from the car and the engine.
It's about how you use them. It's about how you build the car. Clean sheet of paper. All these different designers up and down the pit lanes. They all go away at the winter. What are we going to do? Come back with the car, put them on the track, and it's about how you translate the ideas, the desire, the passion, the sponsorship. Let's face it, costs over $100 million a year. Well, £80 million, let's say, a year to put this show on the road for every team. There's over £1 billion worth of investment in terms of hardware, personnel, comes to every single race. It's high stakes stuff, this.
Oh, fantastic result. Look at the crowd. I mean, this man, he should have won 4. This is his second. But what a moment for him. This is great.
Well, very deserved. I mean, at the end of the day, Schumacher did make that mistake, and I guess he paid the price. But he looked like he was doing a lot more comfortable there than Rubens towards the end. He looked like he had the speed on him.
Let's stand by for the anthem. Two of the longest anthems in history, but one we used to get associated, of course, with the late, great Ayrton Senna.
Yeah,
used to hear that all the time. Absolutely. So Rubens there, put the hand on the heart, fantastic.
Now, I've got to get these statistics right. I think it's Schumacher's 105th podium finish, 106th. I was one out before he hit pen to paper. So, I mean, that's an enormous statistic when you look at the amount of Grand Prix that he's done. I mean, the average is unbelievable.
Well, that equals the great Alain Prost's record.
Yep.
So the next one he'll break.
And I think he's only got one other record to break now, and that's pole positions, which is currently held by Ayrton Senna.
Well, a great result here, and great for Kimi Räikkönen too, like he's driven so well through the year with not a lot of luck.
No, but an enormous talent. I mean, obviously Ron Dennis saw that very on and grabbed him, and he is just going to go on to bigger and better things. There's no question about that. But it's a funny old business, isn't it? I mean, once again, the question is going to be asked now. You know, like Schumacher spun, fair enough, but he did gain that back very quickly. Could he have passed him if he wanted to? I think maybe he could have. So once again, we do have a contrived finish. Whether you blew about pulling up Barrichello and letting him pass, or you blew about them saying, stay where you are, it's still not motor racing, it's still not fair income racing.
Well, I thought there was a nice thing said by David Coulthard tonight when he had that incident with Montoya, and he said, well, I'm a racing car driver, I've got to have a go, that's what I'm here to do.
That's what he gets paid not a couple of mil, many millions for.
Well, they're going to drop one of those on the ground one day. They catch them every time, don't they? But Rubens Barrichello, what a fantastic result. That will really gladden the hearts of motor racing fans all around the world. I mean, the controversy, it's all been said before, done, whatever. But it's just fantastic. And I mean, he's the perfect number 2, isn't he?
Oh, without a question. I mean, he's the perfect backup driver for Schumacher. He's quick, he's reliable, and he's there if Schumacher falls.
And this time he gets the trophy on his own account. And he's going to love that. Look at this, he's enjoying it. I love that when he undid the driver's suit and put the hand on the heart. That was all right.
I think he's been looking at Jean Todt too much. It was like Napoleon Bonaparte. Maybe he's copying that.
OK, let's take you through the results.
Well, as Daz said, a very popular victory by Barrichello for Ferrari. Michael Schumacher in the other Ferrari second. Räikkönen, Schumacher Ralph in the Williams, Jenson Button in the Renault, and Felipe Massa in the Sauber. Good result for him. Bring home some points for Sauber. Drivers' Championship, well look, Michael Schumacher 76 from his brother 30, Montoya 27, Barrichello 26, David Coulthard 26 also, and Jenson Button in 6 with 10.